Welcome to Story Zest. Here you'll find fresh original tales written and narrated by me every Monday and Thursday. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these fictional journeys crafted just for you. Chapter 7. It was Christmas time. Jen and I had promised Sid and Uncle James to help paint their rooms. So four of us headed towards a nearby hardware store. While returning, we saw a security guard yelling and restraining a man in the drugstore. Curiosity piqued. Uncle James hurried over to investigate. We followed close behind. And there was he again, caught stealing medicine. His eyes met ours, and a flicker of shame crossed his face. I wish we were anywhere else but there. This could only worsen the situation. Since Uncle James wasn't on duty, other officers arrived and took him to the police station. The question gnawed at us: who was the medicine for? Worried if Lucas or Granny were sick, we rushed to see them afterward, bringing Uncle James along in hopes he could help Moto. Upon reaching, we found that Lucas was feverish, lying listlessly with worried Granny by his side. Uncle James took charge, helping us get Lucas to the hospital. On the way, we filled Uncle James in on Moto's situation and living conditions. A compassionate frown etched in on his face. The doctor diagnosed Lucas with typhoid. Uncle James, ever the resourceful one, took care of everything, including deciding to help Moto. Hey, boobies! Isn't your mom a social worker who helps kids out? Jen asked. Yes, she is, I replied. So, can't you ask her to find a way to help Moto in her life? He asked with a serious face. Yes, the idea has been crossing my mind for a long time, but it's Moto. There's something weird about him. I don't think he would be comfortable with our help, I explained. He's right, Sid added. He would have chosen to live with foster parents if he wanted help, but he chose to live with his brother like a homeless man. There must be something going on. Back at Sid's place, we painted the rooms and sat relaxing when we heard Uncle James's car pull up. Curiosity gnawed at us, and all three of us raced downstairs. But he wasn't alone. Moto stood beside him. Uncle James surveyed our stunned silence. You three, he said. Take your friend to your room. Make him feel welcome, okay? I'll be back in a few hours. With that, he left. The atmosphere was thick with tension. I had no idea what to do. Just then, Jen broke the ice. Look who it is, patting Moto on the shoulder, he said. Come on, friend, let me do the honor and show you around. Moto stared at him impassively. Come on now, Sid interrupted. Think you can take us down in our own house? Give it a rest with that death glare. It's 3 against 1, buddy. No contest. Let's start over instead. Then he offered his hand for a handshake. Moto looked surprised. After a brief pause, he slowly extended his own hand. And just like that, a handshake marked the beginning of a new friendship. Jen, ever the enthusiast, went a bit overboard, scooping Moto up and carrying him all the way to Sid's room. It was both hilarious and nerve-wracking. I worried Moto might lose his temper, but surprisingly, a smile cracked his face. It was a moment worth remembering. In the room, Moto sat on the couch with me next to him while Jen and Sid perched on the bed facing us. Now, tell us about your life, bro. Jen burst out, excitement bubbling over. We all looked expectantly at Moto. No, not really interested in talking about myself, he replied. All I want to say right now is thanks. Thanks for everything you guys have done for Lucas. I really appreciate it. Is that all? Jen muttered, a hint of disappointment in his voice. What else is there? Moto countered, his expression serious. Okay, at least tell us about your parents. How did you end up homeless? Sid asked. Moto sighed. Look, it's just been a few seconds since we have become friends. I don't trust you guys yet. Cut it out, interrupted Jen. I know you like us. You've been wanting to be friends with us for a while, haven't you? Don't act like we were chasing after you. What nonsense, Moto exclaimed, his face flushing red. I know. That day in school, I saw you scolding your little gang to leave us alone, Jen said with a smirk. It wasn't just Moto who turned red. Even Sid and I were shocked. Whoa, when did that happen? I asked. I was secretly spying on him. The punch that day was hard, so I wanted to take revenge. But his action melted my heart, said Jane. How cringe are you, bro? Said Moto, a smile skipping his lips. We all laughed, the tension disappearing. That day marked the beginning of our unlikely friendship. Moto, a complex mix of humor and fierceness, feared nothing but losing his brother. I shared the whole story with Mom too. She was intrigued and wanted to help Moto out, but I hadn't gotten a chance to ask him about it yet. He had just begun to open up, and I wanted to take things slow and build trust first. Meanwhile, Uncle James fell in love with Lucas, so he wanted to adopt him, but Moto was uncomfortable with that. He would spend days with us, but always return back to the street to Granny. One day, we finally sat Moto down and asked why he refused any help that could improve his and his brother's lives. He took a deep breath and unburdened himself. It hadn't always been like this, he spoke. Lucas and I lived with our mom. Dad had passed away right after Lucas was born, so I was very close to mom. One day, she met a guy named Peter. They fell in love and were about to get married. I was very happy for mom. I liked Peter a lot. We had happily accepted him as a dad. But slowly, some weird things started taking place. Peter had found out that one of the renowned personalities was corrupt and misusing her power. He meticulously collected evidence to expose her, but unfortunately, the woman found out about his plan. She didn't know, however, that Peter had hidden all the evidence on a pen drive. But before he could tell mom where it was, he was killed. And mom was framed for the entire incident. They accused her of murdering her fiance for money. Wait, how? What about the investigation and trial? Sid pressed. Moto fidgeted nervously. It's a mess. The physical evidence had mom's fingerprints. She was at the scene and she was the last person seen with Peter. Worst of all, she confessed. A nagging familiarity prickled at me, but I couldn't place where I'd heard the story before. But why did she accept it? Jen asked with concern. Moto shrugged. That I don't know. The situation had left Moto and Lucas all alone. He chose to live with old Granny in the street because she was the only one who genuinely cared and loved them in those difficult times, and he would never leave her. Finding the pen drive was the only hope of proving his mom's innocence, and a mission he clung to with fierce determination. Do you know who the lady was who framed your mom? Sid asked. I've seen her once, Moto replied. Peter worked for her on a project, so she visited our place, but I was young and I don't remember her name or where she is now. Even if I did, I can't do anything to prove her guilt. Hearing that news, a shiver ran down my spine. Jen and Sid looked equally emotional. No one could have imagined the weight Moto carried. Determined to help him, I made a plan. I invited all three of them for dinner, which they happily agreed to. Chapter 8. The doorbell rang, and I rushed to open the door. Dude, what took you so long? Jane joked. Oh, shut up. I'm not a robot programmed for instant appearances, okay? Dad appeared from behind. Hey there, fellas. Come on in. Coming! Sid and Jen greeted him warmly and entered the house. But Motu remained frozen to the spot, his posture rigid and his expression taut with nervousness. Hey, what's wrong? I asked, concerned. Nothing, he mumbled, avoiding eye contact and shuffling his feet. Dad, this is Moto. I introduced them. Hi, young man. Please make yourself at home. Dad greeted him kindly. However, Moto acted strangely. He simply nodded curtly. Dad squinted at him, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. You look familiar somehow, he mused. Just then, Mom entered the room with a warm smile. Hello, kids, she greeted sweetly. In that instant, Motu bolted from his spot. Everyone whipped around confused as rage contorted his face, his cheeks burning red. What's wrong, dude? Jane stammered, his confusion mirroring mine. She's the one, Moto roared, tears welling up his eyes. What are you talking about? I demanded, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. This is the woman who killed Peter and framed my mom, he screamed. He screamed, his voice thick with accusation. And it's your dad who arrested her that day. A horrifying realization dawned on me. A news report flashed in my mind. Dad arresting a woman. And oh God, it could be his mom. But no, this has to be misunderstanding. Dumbfounded, Mom tried to defuse the situation. It's okay, son. Relax. I know you're confusing me with someone else. It happens all the time. Here, have some water. She reached out a hand to pat his head in comforting gesture. Moto recoiled violently, his rage intensifying. Don't act nice. I know it's you. You're the murderer. Get off me. Seeing him treat Mom with such disrespect ignited a fury within me. Blood pounded in my ears and I saw red. Before I could think, I lunged at him, my fist aimed for his face. Moto reacted quickly, grabbing my arm in a defensive hold. Chaos erupted. Mom and Jen grabbed my arms, restraining me while Sid and Dad tried to calm Moto down. Get lost! Get away from the house! I screamed, my voice hoarse with rage. Sid held Moto and took him away. The tension hung heavy in the air. Moto stormed out, leaving behind a fractured friendship. There was no way I'd let anyone disrespect Mom. Chapter 9. Moto retreated back into his world, ignoring us completely. And we did the same. But as I glanced at Jane, I saw a flicker of something. Something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't just confusion, but a deep, quiet yearning. His eyes lingered on Moto, soft with an unspoken hope, as though he wanted to believe him, to trust his words over the emptiness we shared. The pain in his gaze was a silent betrayal to me. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Hey, why don't you just go with that loser instead of pretending to care about our friendship? I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. Jen's expression tightened, his brows furrowing as he stared at me. Are you serious? He asked, disbelief in his voice. Do you even realize how selfish you're being right now? You're putting us in a position where we have to choose between our closest friends. I get that you're hurt, but that doesn't mean you get to control how we feel. The words hit me harder than I expected, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Just leave. It feels like I'm holding you back anyway. Do whatever you want. I shot back, my voice thick with frustration. Jane's face twisted in disbelief. You're unbelievable, he muttered, shaking his head before turning and storming off, leaving me standing there, a cold emptiness settling in my chest. Dad asked me to deliver a file to Uncle James at Sid's place, but my heart plummeted the moment I saw them. Uncle James sat on the couch, engrossed in conversation with Jen, Sid, and Moto. A wave of pain and betrayal washed over me. My closest friend, like brother, suddenly felt like distant stranger. Witnessing their rapt attention to Moto's story intensified their sting. Uncle James's presence in particular twisted the knife. How could he entertain these accusations? Didn't our friendship mean anything? The seriousness etched on his face spoke volumes. He wasn't simply listening, he was considering. The weight of it all threatened to crush me. I knew something was brewing, but the emotional overload was unbearable. I couldn't stay there any longer. Dropping the package, I bolted for home, tears blurring my vision. Sid's voice calling after me faded in a distant echo. The pain was a physical entity, a tight constricting force around my chest. Never in my life had I felt such a deep, agonizing ache. At that moment, I wished I'd never met Moto. Chapter 10. At school, I studiously avoided Jane, his conflicted gaze a constant reminder of the fractured bond. Sid, however, remained by my side, but his forced cheer couldn't mask the growing distance between us. Our friendship remained a hollow shell, burdened by the weight of unspoken doubts. Exam week arrived and passed in a blur. Then came results day. Sid and I trudged to the bulletin board, a knot of apprehension tightening in my stomach. Jen and Moto were there too. Scanning the results, my eyes widened in disbelief. I had topped the exam. A genuine smile, the first in weeks, stretched across my face. I spun around, relief washing over me, and engulfed Sid in a hug. Gosh, I can't believe I topped it, I exclaimed, a joyous laugh skipping my lips. Just then, a harsh voice uttered the moment. Yes, unbelievable things happen when you have people who can influence many things. Moto sneered from behind us. Not again, Sid muttered, his face darkening with frustration. I spun around furiously, a surge of fury replacing my elation. Launching myself at Moto, I sobbed him with enough force to send him stumbling back. You filthy creature, stop your act or I'll kill you. My voice shook with fury, a scary feeling I didn't recognize. It was clear Moto's words had gotten to me more than I wanted to admit. Moto lunged at me, his fist connecting with my jaw. The world went hazy for a moment, but fury filled me. I swung back, landing a hit on him. We grappled in a messy brawl until Sid and Jen intervened. Jen dragged Moto out of the hallway while Sid held me tight. Snap out of it, Bobby. What are you doing? Sid yelled, worry etched on his face. Get away. I don't need anyone. I spat back. Sid sighed. Picking something up from the ground, he grabbed my hand and led me outside the school. There, he helped me settle on the chair and began calming me down. I know it's difficult for you, Bob, especially with him mentioning your mom. It's a significant accusation. But I've also known Moto for a quiet time now, and he's always been honest. I really hope he's wrong about the whole thing. Honestly, I'd be thrilled if it turned out to be a lie. But can you hear me out? Moto's been through a lot, lost his family and all alone now. I want to understand his pain and see if there is a misunderstanding and hopefully prove him wrong. But the key is to do it the right way. A sigh escaped my lips. I had no words. Sid was right. The thought of someone tarnishing mom's reputation was unbearable. Yet, there was Moto's mom suffering for a crime she didn't even commit. What's that? I asked, pointing at the object in Sid's hand. Oh, it's Moto's watch. It fell off him during the fight. Apparently, it's broken. And since it's the last thing he has left of Peter, he kept it close. I'll try to fix it for him. I nodded, a knot of worry tightening in my stomach. Chapter 11. Mom hosted her stuffy business party like every month, which I was not fond of. I'd usually seek refuge at Sid's place. This time, excusing myself to leave, I couldn't find Mom anywhere. Deciding not to wait, I headed for the door. Just then, I saw two figures in the garden. Their hushed conversation drew my attention, stopping me in my tracks. I was about to ignore it, but I froze as Mom's voice reached my ears. Curiosity tugged at me, and I crept closer. Just take care of that Moto kid, I heard her say, her voice laced with urgency. He's a danger to our business. Sure, came the man's reply. The blood drained from my face. What had I just heard? Was it a misunderstanding? My mind raced, desperately searching for a logical explanation. This couldn't be my kind, caring mom. Maybe she was offering help for Moto, somehow, to get him back to his feet. Yes, that had to be it. I convinced myself. Clinging to this fragile hope, I hurried out of the house. At Sid's place, video games and snacks provided a temporary escape. Laughter filled the air as we got engrossed in the game. The tension broke when Sid, in a fit of excitement, kicked the table, sending a box tumbling down. A watch rolled out with it, my eyes fixated on it. That's his, I thought, picking it up. But a hidden compartment caught my eyes. My fingers twisted the knob, revealing a secret compartment containing a pen drive. We stared at each other, the weight of the discovery settling heavy upon us. My hand froze on the pen drive. Shall we see what's inside? Sid asked. I nodded nervously. Yes, I think so. We plugged the pen drive into Sid's computer. A folder filled with pictures, videos, and files stared back at us. Hesitantly, I clicked on a document. A long list of bank transactions filled the screen. It wasn't something we could understand, so we opened a video instead. A man appeared on the screen. It was Peter. A cold red filled me as he spoke his first words. By the time you would see this video, I'll be long gone. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with dread. We forced ourselves to watch the grainy video, a horrifying window into the past. It stretched on for an agonizing half hour. 5 minutes in, a wave of nausea washed over me. Peter's words painted a nightmarish picture. My mom. A master deceiver exploiting innocent people, acquiring wealth through unethical means. He even implicated her in the accident that shattered Sid's life. The weight of his words, backed by the evidence on the screen, shattered my world. Tears streamed down my face. My body racked with sobs. Shame burned in my gut. How could I have been so blind? Hours passed by in numb silence. Finally, I dared to look at Sid. His face mirrored the devastation I felt. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice thick with pain. Now, everything is in your hand, he said. Those words felt like a crushing blow. My mom's betrayal hung heavy in the air, and crushing guilt settled over me. For Moto's suffering, for the pain in Sid's eyes. Why? Mom, why? What drove you to this? I buried my face in my hands, the weight of the truth a suffocating burden. The need to confront Mom burned in my gut. I raced home, clutching the pen right. I went straight to Dad's room. He was worried to see me at that hour. Everything okay, son? He asked. The words wouldn't come. Instead, I led him to my room and played the video. As Peter's chilling word filled the air, I sank onto the bed, burying my face in the covers. The weight of the truth seemed to press down on me, suffocating. I could see Dad's shoulders slumping. When the video ended, a long silence stretched between us. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice hoarse. Who else saw this video? Just Sid, I mumbled. A deep frown creased his brow. What are we going to do? I asked, lost and afraid. Leave it to me, he said with a heavy sigh before leaving the room. The following days blurred together in a haze of despair. I barely left my bed, unable to face the wreckage of my family. The happy facade we had presented to the world had crumbled, replaced by a suffocating sense of betrayal. My entire life felt like a lie. On the fourth day, I managed to drag myself downstairs, my stomach churning with a blend of fear and anger. Dad, I croaked, what did you do with the pen drive? His answer was a bombshell. I destroyed it. Shock slammed into me. What? Why? Don't you see? We have to turn Mom in. Justice needs to be served. For Sid, for Motu, for all the innocent people she hurt. Shut up, Dad roared, his face contoured in rage. Are you willing to throw your mom away for some misplaced sense of justice? What's done is done. We can try to fix things, move forward. But how can you even consider betraying your own mom? Don't you have any loyalty? His words stung. I couldn't believe my ears. All I could do was stare and wonder. Overwhelmed, I walked away, then ran, tears streaming down my face. How could I face Sid and Moto after failing them? Sid deserved justice, and Moto deserved a life free from pain. But turning in my mom felt like betraying my family. Lost and confused, I went to Sid for comfort. His hug was strong, and it made me feel better. I'm sorry, I muttered, my voice thick with despair. I tried to fix things, but Dad destroyed the evidence. Don't worry, Bubby, Sid reassured me. I have a copy. I just want to know if you're okay with me turning it over to the police. Confusion clouded my mind. A copy? I copied the file while we watched it. We've both been hurt enough by this. The guilty needs to be punished, but I don't want you to suffer too. This has caused so much pain, but it's the past. What do you want? It's not about what I want, I replied, my voice gaining strength. It's about what's right. Give the evidence to the police. I might be sad for a while, but living a lie is unbearable. Do it now. Sid wasted no time sharing the copy with his dad. Chapter 12. I woke up to the constant ringing of the doorbell. It was odd because I don't have any friends or acquaintances who know my apartment. I peered through the peephole and saw a woman standing there with a wide smile. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. I grasped the knob and opened the door. Hey, how may I help you? I asked. The woman smiled. Did you eat Bobo? She inquired. Uh, sorry. Do I know you? I replied. Of course you know her, you idiot! A familiar voice boomed from the hallway. I quickly stepped out of the doorway to see Moto walking towards my apartment, accompanied by Jen and Sid. Before I could comprehend the situation, Moto pulled me into a tight hug. Thanks, buddy, he said. That's when I realized who the lady was. It was Moto's mom. I turned around and looked at her. Thank you, sweetie, she said, placing her hand on my cheek and embracing me in a warm hug. Tears welled up in my eyes. It felt so good to be held affectionately like that. It reminded me of my mom. Words failed me. Just then, Jen spoke from behind. So, this is where you have been hibernating for months, huh? I hope you have enough space for us to hang out, Sid continued. I nodded. The heaviness I was feeling was suddenly lifted as my best friends arrived at my tiny apartment, a place I had called home for a while now, away from the city and the remnants of my old life. While things may never be exactly the same, my friends' presence brought back a flicker of the joy we once shared. Having them back was all that mattered.